Welcome to Honeybee. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell. Real stories of love, lies, and betrayal, where every truth stings. Let's begin. Brianna and I had been together for roughly 18 months when everything unraveled, all because of a laptop. I know how absurd that might sound, ending a relationship over a piece of technology. But the truth is, it was never really about the device itself. It was about what the laptop exposed. I work as a corporate consultant in North Carolina. My job gives me a lot of flexibility, which I value since I'm not always tied to a desk. It's a comfortable arrangement that depends heavily on reliable tech. For that reason, I've got several setups: a desktop at the office, my main laptop at home, and an older one that I keep as a backup for travel or overflow work. Brianna entered my life through a mutual friend. At the time, she was managing a retail store, but often talked about wanting to shift into a different line of work. She was witty, easy to talk to, and our connection happened fast. Within a few months, we were spending most of our free time together. 6 months in, we were exclusive, discussing a shared future. Of course, we weren't flawless as a couple. There were the usual bumps, disagreements over how we spent our time, different social habits, little incompatibilities that never felt like deal breakers. I genuinely believed those things were manageable. We didn't live together. She had her apartment, and I had mine. But weekends and a few weeknights often found us in the same space. I had even thought about suggesting we move in together at some point, though we weren't quite there yet. Looking back, I realized I trusted her more than I probably should have. I've always been the kind of person who assumes the best in others until proven wrong. That works well in my career, not always in my personal life. About 2 months before everything crashed down, Brianna told me she wanted to build new skills. She dreamed of leaving retail to work for herself, and online courses seemed like the right path. But her laptop, she explained, was too outdated and sluggish for the programs she needed to learn. She asked if she could borrow one of mine temporarily, just until she could afford an upgrade. I hesitated. My old laptop, a first-generation Apple M1 MacBook Pro, about 5 years old, was still synced with my work files. It contained sensitive documents, client credentials, and access to my cloud storage. Not classified information, but confidential enough that I didn't want it floating around. But she sounded sincere. She'd already picked out specific courses and showed me the software she wanted practice with. It felt almost petty to say no when I could simply secure the files properly. So I agreed. I handed her the laptop, logged her in, reminded her to handle it carefully. She thanked me and took it home. I didn't think about it much afterward. I just assumed she was practicing in the evenings. She even mentioned a few things she'd learned, which made it sound like she was actually using it for her courses. About a week later, I was working from home when I realized I needed a file that was stored on that very laptop. It was around 2 in the afternoon, and I was prepping for an important client presentation. I texted her a quick message. "Hey, can you drop the laptop by tonight? I need a file off it." I figured she'd reply in an hour or so. Maybe she'd bring it over after work, and we'd grab dinner together. Simple. But the hours ticked by. 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock. No reply. I told myself she was probably just busy at work. Retail managers don't always have time to check their phones. Finally, at around 6:30, my phone buzzed. Her message read, "Don't freak out. I lost your laptop. My ex borrowed it for a project, and now he can't find it." I stared at the screen, rereading it like the words might rearrange themselves into something that made sense. Lost. My ex. Can't find it. Each part hit like a separate punch. First, she lost a laptop that wasn't even hers. Second, she gave it to her ex, someone I'd never met, barely even heard about. Third, she let him borrow it. Why? For what? And finally, he lost it. I sat on the couch, trying to process everything. Why was she even in touch with her ex? Why would she hand over something that belonged to me without asking? And how does someone lose a laptop after just a few days? Even with anger simmering inside me, I kept my voice calm. I texted back something neutral. "No problem. I'll handle it." She called within seconds, voice shaky and rushed. She explained that her ex had contacted her out of nowhere. His own laptop had broken down in the middle of a big project. He was desperate, couldn't afford repairs, and she remembered she had one she could lend for a few days. She claimed she didn't think it would be a big deal. It was just sitting at her apartment after all. But now, she said he couldn't find it. I listened, reassured her, and asked her to have him keep searching. I kept my tone steady, but inside, I knew something wasn't adding up. The moment I hung up, I opened my current laptop, logged in to find my device. Sure enough, the old MacBook was still linked to my iCloud account, a blue that glowed on the map. It was still online, pinging from an unfamiliar neighborhood across town. I took screenshots of everything, location, time, details. Then I called a friend of mine in law enforcement. I explained the situation in simple terms. Someone borrowed my work laptop, passed it to a third party, and now it wasn't coming back. He asked a few questions. Was the device valuable? Did it contain sensitive information? Had I asked for it back? Yes to all of the above. He told me this could be treated as theft, especially since I had tracking data. He walked me through the steps to file a police report. The next morning, I did exactly that. I provided the serial number, explained the nature of the files stored on it, showed the tracking information, and clarified that it had been loaned out without my consent to someone I didn't know. The officer handling the report was professional and assured me they'd follow up. For 2 days, I acted normal with Brianna. She texted me casually as if nothing had happened. I played along, not mentioning the report or the tracking. Meanwhile, the police confirmed the laptop's location and made a plan. On Thursday afternoon, officers knocked on her ex's door. He was stunned. The laptop wasn't lost at all. It was sitting on his desk, powered on, in use. The police seized it and brought him in for questioning. Panicked, he called Brianna, furious. He told her the police had shown up, taken the laptop, and that he might face legal consequences. That's when Brianna's calls started flooding in. What did you do? You called the cops? This is insane. You didn't have to do this over a laptop. Her messages shifted from anger to pleading. She begged me to call her back, to talk, to fix this. I ignored every single one. Through the police report and her ex's statement, I learned the truth. She hadn't just reconnected with him recently. She'd been spending a lot of time at his place. He hadn't asked for the laptop. She had given it to him willingly, claiming it was hers. She assumed I'd never question her or take action if she said it was lost. The story she'd fed me was a lie from the ground up. It wasn't just about the laptop anymore. It was about the trust she broke, the ease with which she lied, and the disrespect behind her choices. A few days later, she showed up at my door, desperate to talk. I opened it, but didn't invite her in. She launched into a frantic explanation. How she didn't mean for it to get this bad. How it was just a laptop. How she didn't think I'd care. I let her talk. Then I said quietly, "No, Brianna, it wasn't just a laptop. It was mine. And this showed me exactly what I mean to you." I told her I knew about the time she'd spent at her ex's apartment, about the lies, about everything. She went pale. She tried to explain, to insist it wasn't what it seemed. I didn't argue. I simply said, "We're done." Then I closed the door. She stood outside calling my name, begging. I didn't open it again. A few days later, I retrieved the laptop from the police. Her ex wasn't charged in the end. Too many gray areas. But I reset everything, wiped the drive, changed all passwords, and secured my data. I blocked Brianna's number, cut off contact, and focused on my life. Weeks passed quietly. She tried reaching out from other numbers, apologies, memories, begging for another chance. I didn't reply, because by then, there was nothing left to say. In the end, the laptop wasn't the real issue. It was what it exposed about respect, honesty, and trust. Brianna thought lying was easier than respecting me. She thought my property was hers to hand off. She thought I'd never push back. I learned something crucial through all of it. Trust isn't something you give blindly. It's earned, and it can be broken in a single careless decision. Better to lose a laptop and someone who never valued me than to lose years of my life to a lie. Even now, I still use that same laptop. Every time I open it, it doesn't remind me of betrayal. It reminds me of the moment I chose self-respect over excuses.